ICIDMEL goes live when there is usually something happening. And what was happening today was this active shooter in North Carolina on campus. One of the things that they reported right away was to stay away from I'm not going to probably say this right, the Caudill labs. And what ended up happening was they had a suspect that was a graduate student, I think, in that lab building. It is unclear as of now if there were people, anybody unalived. There were reports from the Daily Mail, which not that they don't know what's going on, but sometimes they overblow things. It was reported there was a faculty member that was unalived, and maybe also another student. Some other source was saying, this is breaking, right? So people are just getting news from people on campus. And you know how the grapevine works, right? That's why we're here. I'm just listening to the grapevine too. So I'm not claiming to be a reporter. Everything I say is, like my point of view, my speculation, my commentary on what's going on. And when these big events happen, the big companies, publications have stringers, get people on the ground, and that's how they get the news. So sometimes, it's developing. So we're not sure if there was a faculty member that was unalived, or maybe one shot, or maybe it was a student, or it's unclear. What was substantiated and clear was that there was someone arrested, and it looked like the person that around 2:00 they said, this is the person that if you see this person, he is a clear and present suspected danger, stay away from him. And it was this graduate student by the name of Tali. I'm probably not saying this right. Qi, Kai. He's an international student. I don't even want to go into exactly where he's from because people get weirded out about that area, but with a province within China. We don't know why. We don't know exactly what happened, or we do know he was arrested in Williams Street. It was near campus, but not on campus. And there were pictures that the helicopter had, of him being hooked up behind his back, being put into a police car. Now, strangely, there were other reports that somebody had been arrested, handcuffed, interviewed, and it was the wrong person. So that might not be the actual suspect, but they seem to have somebody who they do think was doing this. So this is all very breaking. So, yeah, that's very strange that they said there was somebody who was related. So we don't know. We will learn more. What we do know is that there is no more danger on the campus. As of 4:15 Eastern Standard Time, it was all clear. Police said you were fine. Go about your business. So we will find out more about that. That leads us to over the weekend. There was a another mass shooting. Unfortunately, in the climate that is especially more prevalent in states like Florida, where the governor seems to be intent on inflaming. And I don't know the governor of Florida, and I don't know. Sometimes people say things, just to get attention, to get more media. I can't say I know his heart or who he is, but when people who are in charge give certain groups less respect, shall we say, sometimes that can carry over. This happened on Saturday. A young man, now we don't know about his mental status, and I want you guys all, I have a background in developmentally typical psychology. When we hear that people around between like 18, 19 and like 22, 23, 24 even do something really wackadoodle, that is the age in which schizophrenia does develop, and schizophrenia is delusional. You can have delusions. You can see things or you can hear things. Everybody with schizophrenia is not violent. Most are not. But you can be hearing voices telling you to do things. That is sometimes the case. So we don't know what this young man's mental health was. We do know that in 2000, he's 21 now, and hey, motorcycle guy, in 2017 he was Baker acted in Florida, and a Baker Act is when you're involuntarily committed. So he obviously has some problems. Well, he obviously has problems regardless, but in the past he had some mental problems. And this is not to excuse what he did, because he wrote very hate-filled, almost neo-Nazi-esque manifestos, according to the police chief in Jacksonville, Florida, where this occurred. He unalived 3 African-American people, Black people, in a Dollar General. He actually was first seen on a historically Black college's campus, and the security guard asked him who he was. He refused to identify himself. The security guard at the college campus near this Dollar General said, "You're going to have to leave." And as he was leaving and getting in his car, he was viewed putting on a vest, like a bulletproof vest, and putting on a mask. Then he seems to have driven to this Dollar General, where he used, I believe he had, I don't know how many, he had a high power weapon, I believe. And yeah, his name is Ray Christopher Hall Meter. I won't say his name again because we don't really want to give a lot of attention. There were 3 people unalived and it seems like literally it was hate filled. We don't know what his manifesto said because the police aren't releasing it. We don't really know much else besides it was horribly, I mean, it will be a hate crime. Hopefully he needs to be put away. We will hear more about that. That happened just Saturday. So again, still sort of breaking news. We'll find out more, and when we find out more, I will tell you more. The last shooting that we have to talk about, again, drink, is kind of weird, but yet more typical. So we don't know what in the first case at Chapel Hill, we don't know what the guy's motivation was. We do know that the young man in Florida, his motivation was racial hate, and it was a hate crime. In this third case, this happened a week ago Wednesday. So we're going backwards in time. The Chapel Hill was today, Monday the 28th. The Florida, Jacksonville shooting in the Dollar General there, that was just this past Saturday. And then this happened last week, almost a week now, Wednesday. It was about 7 p.m. And so when I first saw this come across Twitter, X, whatever, the media called, the name of this restaurant was called Cook's Corner something and biker. They were like, it's a biker bar. Well, it I guess in the past had been like, ooh, a biker bar, but now it is a kitschy Orange County. It's in a canyon. What's the canyon's name? Trubo. That's not right. Trabuco Canyon. It was just a nice place to have dinner. Great restaurant. Lots of people there. It was, 40 people were in this restaurant. It was 7 o'clock at night. A number of people there, like this one woman, Tanya Clark, 49-year-old mother, single mother of a 13-year-old, celebrating her birthday. There was John Leahy, 67, Glenn Spowell, 53. All of those 3 people were unalived by this man who was a retired Ventura police officer who had 0 record, who had retired in 2014. He was married for over 30 years to his wife. This is gonna make you want to drink. They had bought the house. They lived in Camilo, California, and they had bought the house next to them where his parents moved in, and he took care of his mom and dad, and the mom died, and then he took care of his dad, and he died. And then 2020, a lot of people's relationship didn't survive 2020. You got to really love somebody to be stuck inside with them and not want to divorce them, right? After over how many months. And California was more, their lockdowns were more rigid and people paid attention more. So I think you really were stuck in the house. Well, their marriage didn't make it. And the wife they separated, I believe, in 2020, and she moved to Orange County to go take care of her mom. And then in 2022, just this past December, and we know the most dangerous time for women is when they actually decide to divorce, she filed for divorce. Now, the divorce attorney, especially his divorce attorney, was like, it wasn't really acrimonious. They didn't have knockdown fights. She didn't say he was abusive or dangerous. She didn't want any restraining orders. None of that. It was like a normal divorce with the normal whatever. And he said the biggest problem they had was she wanted, they had been married 32 years, and they had, combined, what is that called? Community property that they had to split. And so after she had gone to Orange County, they still had that house in Camilo. He had moved out of California to Newark, Ohio, which is like 5 hours from me. And I have a friend who lives right in Granville, Newark, and I'm going to ask her about this area and if she knows anything. So this guy moves there. I don't know if he had previous ties. I mean, because his parents are with California. I don't know what he was doing in Newark, Ohio, but that's kind of interesting, so far away. So last week, he got into his car from Ohio, drove all the way to California to go to this restaurant where his wife, ex-wife, soon to be, was having dinner, walked in, said nothing. So all the witnesses said this guy comes in wielding. He brought 3 weapons with him. He brought a handgun. Oh, sorry, four weapons, 3 handguns, and a 12-gauge shotgun. I mean, I don't know how he's a police officer, so I don't know if he had something to carry. I don't know how you carry all those 3 things on you. I guess in your different, I don't know. I've only seen it in movies, like one in a boot, one in the back, your front, your back, waistband, one in your hand. I don't know where your 12 gauge is on your back. But he walks in, but he doesn't say anything. So he comes into this restaurant, and I guess he aims at his wife, but then just like indiscriminately. So 6 people were wounded, 3 people were killed. Tanya Clark, 44, John Leahy, 67, and Glenn Spowell Jr., 53. All unalived. The mom of a 13-year-old, she was a single mom, just turning 49, which is kind of there's a GoFundMe for Tanya Clark. Go check that out. She was there celebrating her birthday. Can you believe it? So, yeah, he was mad about the divorce and didn't really say, like, he had bottled it up. And I guess neighbors said, like, he was kind of controlling of her and he was a very quiet guy. I don't know. It sounds like he was one of those people, just kept it down, and then exploded. Everybody's shocked. Nobody saw this coming. She actually was shot. The article said, I think it was People Magazine, I got this part out of. She woke up and Thursday. So it happened last Wednesday. She is expected to survive. And of course, she is feeling horrible. Obviously not her fault, but this is just a horrible act that this man committed. Yeah. If you're getting divorced, the answer isn't this. Oh, do you want to know what happened to him? What do you think he did? He took the coward's way out. Yeah, he then walked outside of the restaurant after mowing down people, and the police were there within 3 minutes. So this is a small area with a very responsive police force. So the call, they said, went out at 7:04, and they were there, sorry, 4 minutes. By 7:08, it was all over. They showed up. He aimed at them and took shots at the police, and there was a firefight. And if we, I mean, and he used his 12 gauge. That's a big, I mean, so suicide by police, I would say, unfortunately. Yeah, I don't know. You know what? The 21-year-old in Jacksonville, Florida, I don't know if he is unalived as well. He had an RA-15 like they all do, and a Glock. I only know, sorry, the sooner it happens, the less we know. And I just looked this all up because of the breaking thing. So we're 20 minutes in. We have two important missing people that, look at me, that are missing. One kind of follows a story that we talked about before, and I wonder if there's some weird pattern. If you followed my channel, and if not, you can look up this case. There was a number of men, and then I think it was one woman too, or two women, who were in the tech field in California around the Bay Area, who had gone missing, and some were found unalive right away, and then some were just found. In the case, I forget the guy's name, but he had gotten into an Uber and didn't show up at home, and they saw that he got into an Uber, got out of that, got into another one, and his remains were just found in, where was it? It was in a lot. I will try to do, like, cut these up and then put in some pictures. But we have another guy. But this kid, Johannes Kiden, he disappeared Monday, August 14th, got into an Uber in the Bay Area. Well, sorry. Maybe I'm a big fat liar. San Jose, California. For some reason, I think it's around the Bay. Oh, here's why I think it's around the Bay Area. Later, his phone, his wallet, and later a backpack were found south of the Golden Gate Bridge. He was a recent Cornell University is in New York State graduate, and he had only lived in California 2 weeks. He was a Netflix software engineer. So we have another tech guy. Now, the other tech bros were like also involved in sort of like Bitcoin, and they were like the CEOs, except for one person. But it's weird. Okay, so sorry, it's not weird. Statistically, who's out in California, in the Bay Area? It's all tech industry. So I guess you can't really say that's weird. That, LA, San Francisco, there's a lot of tech. Everybody, that's the Silicon Valley area. It would be like saying, oh my gosh, there's been a rash of like starlets killed in Hollywood. Okay, well, that's who lives in Hollywood. Anyway, so, but this young man was, I mean, getting into an Uber, though, is the same thing that this other man had done. Got into an Uber, disappeared. So they're still looking for him. He is missing. And his family is, of course, he was only there 2 weeks. They're out of their mind. He's a young kid who just graduated. He is only, I wrote that down. I thought he was like 22. Very young. All right. So Johann S. I wonder, I have a picture of him. Uh-oh, we're at the 23-minute. Let me show you, though. I want you guys to see what he looks like. Really good-looking guy. Young, his whole life ahead of him. Also reminds me of Daniel Robinson, who went missing. He was a he went missing out of either Arizona, Nevada, doing soil analysis. Okay, let me show you. Here's his missing poster. It's going to look backwards to the writing, but let me see. Can you see that? That's the young man who is missing out in California. If you see him, if you are in the Bay Area, if you're anywhere around San Jose, California, he got into an Uber. If you know anybody who's in Uber, he's a Netflix software engineer. Unbelievable, right? All right. So our next missing person, sorry, is no, there was a missing person. So she has been found. Let me tell you about Katira Beauty Couch. Katira, known as Beauty, she was only 22. She was an influencer on Instagram doing roller skating, and I actually follow some roller skating women accounts, and they like exercise and dance on like old-fashioned four-wheel roller skates, and she was fabulous. She was she went missing and was reported by her family on, let's see, she went missing last week and on a Tuesday. So August 22nd, she went missing. On August 23rd, a car was found. So she's from the Atlanta area. A car was found in Ostella, Georgia, not too far from Atlanta. It was burning. It was on fire on the side of the road. And the police in Ostella checked the registration, as one does. And it came back to Katira's mom, Beauty's mom. The family got alerted and they're like, no, that's Beauty's car. That's who was driving that car. Oh my God, we can't find her. She's been missing for a day. They all go to where the car is and start looking. So I saw this case on the Pascal show this morning. I watched about an hour and a half stream of his, and he is an African American creator, a Black man, very fun to follow. I would follow him, especially if you're interested. You know, the minority cases don't get much attention, and so minority creators tend to try to pick up some of that slack. And so I always like to see what he's doing so that we cover everybody. So this beautiful girl missing from Cobb County. They find her car. The family goes and looks. The family walks towards there's woods near where the car in Estelle, Georgia. They get into the wood line, which if that's right where the woods start, you know, the line where it starts. And while searching, they find her. It's pretty unbelievable that the family finds her. And they played the interview, and of course the mom is just beside herself with anguish and heartache and wants to know who did it. So that was Wednesday. So she had been missing since the 22nd in the morning. So that was by 12:30 in the afternoon. The car was found, the family was called, and they found her. So this Friday, a suspect was arrested. And this is kind of like what we like to see. And it's kind of more common because usually when somebody unalives somebody, there's a connection, unless we have like a serial case or some potential serial killers like the Rachel Morin case, Lisk, the Rex Huerman, the Kohlbergers of the world, if he did it out in the Idaho 4 case. You know, it's very strange not to have some connection somehow to your victims. And, you know, it makes it a lot harder when there is no connection. Well, there was a connection. Allegedly, her boyfriend was found in St. Tammany Parish in New Orleans area. I don't know how close it is to New Orleans, but it was in I always want to say Las Vegas because when I see LA, um, in Louisiana, he was found. He's actually from Florida. He's 21. And yeah, Eugene Louis Jacques from Florida. And he appears to be a boyfriend. He will now be waiting to be extradited. So, as we know from the Shannon Garber, our Stamp It Up heiress friend from, well, she's not friend, but woman from uh, from Florida who is allegedly part of a plot to unalive her ex-husband because of a custody dispute. That was the Microsoft murders. Jared Bridge, Bridger, Bridger. I'm not saying that right. Sorry, Jared, and his wife Kristen. They have two kids, and then he had two kids with Shannon, and she went after the hitman who confessed. He confessed, and she took off to Washington State. Her ex-husband, I don't know if they're still married, but her new husband that was part of the plot, who was the connection to the hitman, that guy got arrested and she took off to Washington. Now she's waiting to be extradited, and we know from that process we talked about governors are involved. So state to state, they usually go. But there's like this process where one governor has to ask the other governor, the other governor has to say okay. So that's what we're also waiting for. Georgia, Florida, I don't see there being a problem. There's no like in the Washington to Florida, there might be a problem because they might say, well, you can't do the death penalty because she's here in our state and we don't have the death penalty. I don't know how the Governor Isley in Washington will handle the Shannon Garber extradition and if that will play into it. I'm assuming that's why she went to Washington because she's trying to get out of it. Um, yes. Oh, lastly, so I'm going to go slightly over 30 minutes. There's a case out of Detroit. On Sunday, I listened to Surviving the Survivor with Joel is the host. Sometimes he has his mom Carmen there with him. She is a Holocaust survivor, so he says he's like surviving his mom. That's why it's Surviving the Survivor. But Joel used to work as a journalist, and he started this show. I don't know if it was during COVID, but anyways, he gets really great. He's like Duty Ron. He's like the Interview Room. He's like hidden true crime. They get like guests to speak, and he gets some of the same people that I see on like the experts like Gary Baccato, who is the expert on serial killers, like Anne. What is Anne's last name? The Mind Hunter. Dr. Anne, why can't I think of her last name? Dr. Anne Burgess, uh, who was the who was modeled after for the character in Mindhunter, the female character, the psychologist. She was a PhD in nursing psychology, I believe, but criminology. She is the one who helped create a scale for like how to an interview protocol for interviewing serial killers. Anne Burgess. She's got books. Must watch any show that has Gary Bacata and Anne Burgess on it if you're interested in anything serial killer. Anyway, this one, Joel had on what was his last name? Correct. He had on really good police detectives. One of them was the old police detective from Detroit, and he had also been the police detective in Cincinnati, somewhere else, big cities, in Portland, Maine, which I personally have a connection to and love. This guy, really good, was talking about this Detroit. And his friend Robin. What's Robin's last name? He's a counterintelligence CIA or FBI counterintelligence retired guy. Was one of his other guests. So really good guests about uh, unusual crimes. They were talking about Dr. Devin Hoover. So Dr. Devin Hoover was a neurosurgeon from Detroit, Michigan, only in his, I think he was 43. He lived in a 1.2 million home, 9 bedrooms, 13,000 square feet in this historic district of Boston Edison. Of course, there's lots of areas in Detroit that's still beautiful old homes from when Detroit was, Motown. It was also Motor City, where all the executives of all the big three car makers lived. And there's tons of these great mansions. And he renovated this. There was no forced entry into his home. He does happen to have he happens to be gay, which is not a big deal, but it plays into who might have done this, because he was found when he didn't go to this was in March, late March, when he, or maybe it was early April, it was for Easter, I believe. He was supposed to go home to, I believe it was Chicago, and his family reported him like he didn't show up, and then he wasn't also at the hospital at work. They found him in the crawl space in his attic, naked, wrapped in a sheet and comforter, I believe, with one sock on. He had gunshots to his head, but one was close up and one was from far away, which is kind of confusing. So it is a homicide. There was no forced entry, and so they are unclear, and that's why sexual orientation would come into it, because of who they would be looking for as a potential suspect if it was maybe a date. I don't think he has a known boyfriend, but they did have somebody that they're not naming, or they weren't talking about it on the show. They did arrest somebody early on as a person of interest, let's just say suspect, and they had to let that person go because they didn't have, I guess, quite enough evidence. So the police are still working, but this is a very, very interesting case. This man was living in this huge home alone, but he had renovated, and we're unsure if there was any electronics. Did they check the router? We talk about that all the time, because if it was somebody who knew him, their phone would have maybe attached while they were there at the house. So Dr. Devin Hoover, we're still talking about it. What happened? Yeah, so Joel does a lot of interesting cases. That this isn't exactly a cold case because it just happened this past spring, but what's going on when a prominent member of society is just gunned down and found wrapped up in their house. It's a little concerning. So I thought that was an interesting case that we should be following in Detroit. All right, I'm going to save the big story about James Burke related to the Shannon Gilbert and the Gilgo Beach for. He has a history that involves corruption, and the person that was involved with him, Spoda, just was denied. He was convicted for obstruction of justice involving hiding what James Burke was doing, and he and another officer that were involved in the cover-up obstruction of justice, they just lost an appeal. So we'll talk about that tomorrow, because this is going long. It's already been 37 minutes. Have a great Monday. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.